The rain came down in thick, metallic sheets, a downpour that glistened under the strange glow of the twin moons now hovering over the African sky. In the forests of Matamba, beneath the canopy of ancient trees, Nzinga Mbande stood motionless, her obsidian armor slick with the mist of the alien storm. Her eyes, sharp as obsidian knives, remained fixed on the horizon, where the enemy, human and otherwise, were drawing closer. The air pulsed with tension and the distant hum of machinery not made on Earth. Her breath was steady, defiant. She was born of war, tempered by betrayal and now chosen by fate. The legacy of her people flowed through her blood like fire, a long line of sovereigns, defenders of the Ndongo and Matamba kingdoms. But unlike her ancestors, Nzinga was not just fighting men who wore iron. She was battling beings of circuitry and blood, invaders who had traded crucifixes for plasma rifles and ships that swallowed the sky. Nzinga had not always believed in destiny. As a girl, she had watched her father, Ngola Kiluwanji, wade through the murky tide of diplomacy, trying to outwit the Portuguese traders who came with silks, salt, and steel. But something else came with them. Strange lights, floating machines, whispers of a council of expansion far beyond the Atlantic. Her father spoke of them only in hushed tones, praying to the ancestors for protection. He called them the Ghost Ones. When he died, poisoned by a drink handed to him by a smiling envoy from Lisbon, the throne fell to her brother, Mbande. Weak-willed and hungry for power, he sold what remained of their dignity. He signed treaties carved in alien runes and allowed observers to hover over sacred burial grounds. The people of Matamba whispered that the skies no longer belonged to them. Nzinga watched in silence, biding her time. Now, with her brother dead and the capital occupied by both Portuguese soldiers and their spectral allies, Nzinga had become more than queen. She had become a symbol. She led her people into the jungles, where the old spirit still spoke. It was there she found the ancestral engine, buried beneath layers of earth and bone, a forgotten machine left behind by an ancient people, or perhaps a gift from something older still. She had activated it not with machines, but with blood and language, reciting the chants taught to her by the elder women of her tribe. The engine hummed, scanned her DNA, and chose her. From that day, she carried its power, a resonance in her voice that could bend iron and minds. Her enemies called it witchcraft. Her people called it salvation. Tonight, Nzinga was not alone. Around her stood the warriors of the Black Fang Regiment, descendants of slaves, oracles, smiths, and hunters. Each wore armor cobbled together from stolen colonial metal, wood, and the glowing stones that powered the ancestral engine. Their faces were painted in red and white, and their weapons hummed with kinetic charge. They were human, angry, proud, unstoppable. "Scout reports movement near the River Kuvo," said Captain Ekong, stepping beside her. "Drones, three-legged, shields active." Nzinga tilted her head. "Are they hunting or warning?" "Hunting, my queen." "Good," she replied, lifting her spear, its edge vibrating with a sound like thunder waiting to speak. "Let them come. Let them taste what Earth has grown in its darkest roots." Ekong grinned. "Should I send word to the others?" "No need," she said. "They already know. The land is speaking. It knows the hour." In the silence that followed, Nzinga closed her eyes. She remembered the council chamber of Luanda, where she'd once faced the Portuguese governor and his alien handler. They had offered her a seat at their table, if she bent the knee. She had refused. She had dragged a chair of her own, carved from the tree of the Matamba spirits, and sat as an equal. That moment had sparked a fire that no technology could extinguish. "They think they can erase us," she murmured. "They think memory is weak." "We remember everything," Ekong replied, tightening the grip on his war pike. Above them, a screeching light split the clouds, an enemy scout craft. The warriors below moved without a word, melting into the trees. Nzinga remained still, her eyes reflecting the cold blue glow of the intruding vessel. The craft paused in the sky. A red beam scanned the ground. Nzinga whispered in the ancient tongue, and the beam flickered. The engine answered her call. Energy spiked through the air, and the drone convulsed in mid-air before crashing into the trees with a scream of ruptured plasma. The forest lit briefly, then returned to shadows. Silence returned. Nzinga's lips curled in satisfaction. Even the sky can bleed. The warriors emerged again, emboldened. A message had been sent. To the colonizers, to the stars. But Nzinga knew this was only the beginning. The true battle was not for land, nor for survival. It was for legacy, for the right to exist in memory, not as victims, but as victors. As she turned toward the deeper forest, where her generals waited to plan the next strike, she felt the power of her ancestors rise in her bones. This was not just a rebellion. It was a declaration. Earth would not go quietly into another's archive. Let them come. Nzinga was ready. The jungle had always been a place of secrets, but now it pulsed with strategy. Beneath thick foliage laced with bioreactive vines, Queen Nzinga stood before a flickering map projected from a sphere of pulsating energy, one of the few recovered alien artifacts that her engineers had managed to reprogram. The glowing lines depicted not only the land of Matamba, but the positions of the enemy's aerial patrols and dropships, red blips shifting like venomous insects in the sky. She had studied every movement, every weakness. Her war was no longer one of desperation. It was becoming a campaign of calculated vengeance. General Cato, a former slave from the eastern coast, approached silently. His armor, made from salvaged plates of drone wreckage and woven bark, clinked softly as he bowed. "Scouts report another slave convoy moving toward Luanda," he said, voice taut with fury. 12 guards, half of them enhanced. Nzinga nodded slowly. "How many of our own?" 50, maybe more. Children, too." Her hand tightened around the hilt of her ceremonial spear, which doubled now as a neural relay, linked directly to the ancestral engine. For a moment, her expression flickered between pain and restraint. Every life stolen was another echo in her bones, another reason the stars would one day remember Earth not as a conquered world, but as one that fought back. "We free them," she said. "No hesitation." "We'll lose warriors," Kaito warned. "They're laying traps. The last ambush was bait." "Then we take the bait," Nzinga replied, "but we strike on our terms. Make them bleed for every child they chain." Behind them, the jungle stirred. Warriors emerged from the shadows like ghosts, faces painted in streaks of memory and war. Among them was Anaya, a war-seer whose eyes had been replaced by polished crystal grown from alien spores. She saw not with sight, but through rhythm, through vibration, through time. "There is a fracture in their timing," Anaya said, her voice distant, laced with static, as if tuned to something greater. "The stars above them falter for just a moment. That is when we burn." Nzinga trusted her. Anaya had predicted the fall of the first mothership, sensed the trap laid beneath the Makua River, and foresaw the betrayal of the River Prince before his own guards had known. There was something in her, half prophet, half antenna. "Then we ride that fracture," Nzinga said. "The ghosts want us silent. Let's give them thunder." The march began before dawn. Mist coiled around ankles and rifle barrels. Nzinga walked at the front, never behind. It was a decision she had made long ago, that no general deserved to command from comfort. Her presence was a symbol, one the enemy both feared and sought to destroy. They called her La Reina Maldita, the cursed queen. They told stories of her voice cracking walls and her shadow making machines fail. Most of it was myth, but not all. By midday, the convoy was in sight, a procession of prisoners bound by electro chains, escorted by hybrid mercenaries, part man, part machine. Towering bipedal walkers, etched with Portuguese sigils and alien glyphs, lumbered beside the guards. At their center was a command unit, a floating platform pulsing with surveillance drones, and a bio-command node with direct uplink to orbit. Nzinga gave the signal. From the canopy, bolts of compressed sound and kinetic shards rained down. The first walker fell to one knee, its systems shorted by a sonic burst tuned to its resonance core. Warriors dropped like falcons from the trees, their blades humming with energy, slicing through circuits and armor. Nzinga surged forward, her spear spinning in brutal arcs. A guard lunged. She parried, countered, and dropped him with a thrust to the throat that surged with heat. Another fired from behind a shield. Her voice rose in a battle cry. The ancient dialect fused with the engine's pulse, and the projectile veered mid-air, its trajectory rewritten by force alone. At the center of the fray, she locked eyes with the enemy commander, a man once human, now mostly machine, silver grafts across his skull and synthetic nerves down his spine. He raised his plasma blade. "Witch queen!" he hissed. "Machine slave!" she answered, and they clashed. Their battle was brief but thunderous. Sparks lit the air. His strength was amplified by tech. Hers was sharpened by fury and purpose. A feint, a sweep, a scream. Then his core exploded as her spear drove through it, silencing the uplink and scrambling the orbiting feed. The fight ended in minutes. Not a single prisoner remained chained. They wept and clung to her, some whispering her name like prayer, others in stunned disbelief. Nzinga stood among them, chest rising slowly, armor scorched but unbroken. She looked to the sky, not in fear, but with the cold stare of challenge. The satellites watching would record this defeat. The alien council would feel this moment ripple in their calculations. Kaito approached again, face bloodied but smiling. "They'll send more." "Good," she said. "Let them." Far above the clouds, a distant ship stirred, a larger force preparing. But below, in the heat and dirt of Earth, Nzinga stood defiant. The war had only just begun. Smoke curled above the shattered ruins of the outpost, its once pristine towers now blackened husks puncturing the gray sky. Nzinga stood upon the ridge, overlooking the valley below, where remnants of the colonizers' army limped toward their extraction point. They were broken, physically, strategically, spiritually. And yet, she knew this was only the eye of the storm. The real war was coming, one that would not be fought with just weapons, but with memory, faith, and the relentless fire of a people who refused to be erased. Beside her, Anaya clutched a scroll wrapped in cloth woven with energy threads. The prophecy had grown clearer with every skirmish, every fallen commander. "They will come in threes," Anaya whispered, her voice strained, as if every word burned her throat. 3 emissaries from the council. One brings peace in deception. One brings fire wrapped in mercy. The last brings silence. Nzinga absorbed the words, already planning. Her mind was a maze of interconnected fronts, political alliances with rebel satellites, supply routes hidden through wormhole cracks in the Kwanzaa River, encrypted messages to orbiting defectors. This was not just about winning land anymore. It was about reclaiming reality itself. Kaito approached. From the ravine, flanked by warriors bearing scavenged tech. One carried a cracked visor marked with the insignia of the Obsidian Legion, elite enforcers of the alien overlords. "We found this," Kaito said. "The Legion's captain was here, watching." Recording Nzinga's jaw tightened. "They were testing us. They saw too much." "Good. Let them know we are more than myth." From behind the ridge, children emerged. Those rescued weeks ago, now clothed, trained, transformed. Some were barely 12 but had already learned to dismantle drones blindfolded. One of them, a boy named Ndombe, stepped forward, holding a data shard. "This was inside one of the walkers," he said quietly. "I cracked the encryption. There's something buried in the Sahel, something big." Nzinga took the shard and slotted it into her gauntlet. Holograms flickered, schematics, alien blueprints, strange inscriptions that seemed to pulse with a frequency not meant for human minds. Among them was a name, Project Sovereign, and beneath it, a coordinate marked in scarlet. "They mean to end us," Kaido said, staring at the projection. "Not enslave, erase." Nzinga turned to the gathered warriors, her eyes reflecting the flickering light of the hologram. "Then we go to Sahel. We bring the storm." They moved swiftly, through jungle and desert, aided by allies long thought lost. In Timbuktu, they found monks who sang with voices that bent sound. In the ruins of Lagos, they uncovered relics from before the fall, tools that could rewrite matter, bend light, fuse biology with metal. The old Africa was not gone. It had simply been buried, waiting for a queen to awaken it. When they reached the Sahel, it was already humming, an artificial mountain of steel and stone, half buried, pulsing with an eerie blue light. Drones swarmed the sky like carrion birds. Ground units patrolled with mines linked to the mainframe. It was a fortress, a factory, a temple. Nzinga stood at its edge, her hand on her spear. Around her were tribes once divided, now united. Their banners bore different symbols, but their purpose was singular. "We were never meant to survive," she said, her voice carried by the engine. "We were meant to surrender, forget, become shadows in their perfect world. But we remembered, we fought, and now we burn their future to light our own." The assault began at dusk. EMPs detonated in concentric waves. Sonic lances pierced defensive fields. Warriors fought like spirits, silent and devastating. Nzinga led the charge, her movements guided by both instinct and history. Each strike carried centuries of resistance. Each breath summoned the strength of mothers, fathers, and ancestors who had bled into the soil beneath her feet. Inside the heart of the fortress, she faced the entity known only as the Arbiter, an ancient intelligence, neither fully alien nor machine. Its voice filled the chamber, smooth and terrifying. "You are an echo, Nzinga Mbande, a flicker in a system perfected by extinction." "I am a storm," she answered, "and I do not flicker. I devour." Their battle transcended the physical. It was fought in memory, in language, in the neural webs of shared experience. For every algorithm the Arbiter deployed, Nzinga countered with story, with truth. In the end, the machine faltered not because it lacked power, but because it could not understand faith. The fortress exploded from within, blue fire lighting the night sky. Nzinga emerged, wounded but alive, as the stars blinked overhead, not in dominance, but in acknowledgement. Kaido found her seated beside the ruins, watching the dawn. "Is it over?" he asked. She didn't answer immediately. The world was quiet now, as if holding its breath. "No," she said finally. "This was only our beginning."